Hey man, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate y'all for joining us today. We got BPG in the house. Welcome, BPG. Introduce yourself to the peoples, man.
Hola, my name is BPG313. You can follow me on TikTok, got the same name. YouTube got the same name. If you feel free, to want to follow me on Instagram, I got the similar name, Black Pearl Girl with a U. No K.
Yeah, definitely follow her on Instagram too, because her little stories and stuff be good too. So I like that. But let's get into these videos, man. It's interesting stuff today. All right.
Why is it when young white men felt alienated and alone, they listen to podcasts, think women shouldn't exist, and then vote for Donald Trump? But then when black men, young black men, felt like alienated and alone, they did something really cool and they formed the Black Panther Party for self-defense, and they got like universal free breakfast in the United States implemented because the programs they were running were such a threat to the existing institutions in the country. Like, why the difference though? Like, why did they do it way better than the alienated white people?
You know why?
Why?
Cause black women.
Because black women. Because black
Cause
women made
cause
up the
black women.
majority of the BPG. made up the majority
Cause
of the
black women.
BPP. Yeah.
Because they didn't do it. And that, you know what? That's the weird ahistorical part about people talking about the Black Panther Party is that, for one, they always talk about the Black Panther Party as if it was much bigger than what it was, and
It wasn't.
it was very, very minuscule, which makes it weird
Mhm.
that they tried to get rid of it. But also, when you talk about the Black Panther Party, the very small number that it was still majority black women. So if you want
Mhm.
to talk about the difference between why it is, white men feel empowered by Donald Trump and, grape apologists and all of this stuff and white supremacy. It may have something to do with white women, but I can guarantee you with the Black Panther Party, it has to do with, black women being on the forefront of those lines. Like that's what the difference is.
And when white men do it, white women don't get involved because the movements are not they there are reactions typically to what white women are also fighting for,
Right.
right? Like so why would a white women join the cause? You know what I'm saying? Like their
Yeah.
own for their own oppression, like directly. I mean, like we know they join causes that like in some way circle back
Yeah.
to their oppression, but like the stuff that white men be talking about is like, why would I'm not joining that. Like that's
But white
terrible for
women
me.
also have a habit of being like very coy with the boy when they talk about racism. Like they get
Yes.
very who, what my
I don't
husband
even
did.
see it.
Oh, I wasn't aware that that's what that's what he does at night. I mean, I sold a
I'll
little
talk
white
to him.
robe, but I don't know what the white robe was for. I just thought he was doing baptisms in the woods. Like, man, please,
I cut out all
please.
the eyes. I cut out the eyes in his role, but I thought he was just gonna be a ghost for Halloween. Like no,
I didn't know. It's April. Why would like be for
and
real?
it and the top is pointy. Like
They have a habit of doing that, and black women are just like, I was reading this study that was talking about black women, and it was talking about how black women vote the way they do because they are consistently conscious of the community at
yes,
large, and they
yes.
don't think about themselves, which is like for sure peak Black Panther Party. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe you can answer that with black men
Mm.
and why it is they want to fit in with white men so much that they will discredit what black women do even when they know that they can't separate the two. You cannot separate the two.
The easy answer is black men fear white patriarchy like everybody else does, and it's easier to join the winning team.
Bet.
That's just what it is. It's easier to join the winning team, and and I mean, and to be honest, it's not just the white patriarchy, but um, they there is protection in the patriarchy for men, right? There's a
For sure.
certain level of protection, right? So men don't go against the patriarchy, even though they know it's hurting them, even though they know it has a is directly contributing to their oppression. They're like, nah, but if I
Mm-mm.
step out, what is life gonna be like on the outside? It's like what's my show? Game of Thrones, right? I don't know if you ever watched Game
Mm-mm.
of Thrones.
Never in my life.
Okay, you don't seem like the person. I ain't gonna even lie, BBG. You don't seem
No,
like the person
no,
that would
no.
watch Game of
Mm-mm.
Thrones. But it's a great show. You should watch it. Just just side note. But Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones is in there. There's like a big wall there's a big wall that is built around, it's like the Great Wall of China, essentially, or the Wall of Benin, right?
Right.
And on the other side of the wall, the people are like in the wilderness, and you know what I'm saying, and all of this stuff. But the people on the other side, on this side of the wall, they don't really know what it's like on the other side of the wall.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah.
just don't know what it's like to be. They call them free men, like in the thing, right? Or wild. No, they call them wild men. I'm sorry. They don't know
Okay.
what it's like to be a wild man. They don't know what it's like to not have the protection of the wall. And most men don't want to. They don't want to feel. They don't want to know what that ever feels like. Unfortunately, they fear it so much. They're like, oh, I don't want to live in the wilderness, so I'm going to stay
Right.
right here with my men. It's the same reason why don't Americans why don't we burn all of this shit down? Well, we know that, you know what I'm saying? Like, we know what's happening to us. We know it's the Elon
It's
Musk
already
of the
on
world.
fire.
Well,
Just like
but
just
we didn't set it on fire. That's a problem.
We didn't set it on fire, but it already is on fire. And I think the weirdest part is that you have Americans and men, I will say, have the mindset of, no, let's save the house. And they have like a cup of water and they're trying to like, it's
Take that.
Stop it. Like, and it's like that.
Damn it.
You're not doing anything.
It's
like
not working.
that's the not all men,
Mm-hmm.
I got black
It goes
friends.
both ways. Mm-hmm.
It's like it's hand in hand. And the fact of the matter is like there are a whole lot of women, leftist, revolutionary people who are like, look, it's on fire. Even if you get the fire out by now, like the house is unsalvageable. Like there's a perfectly great piece of land right there. We can just
let's build
rebuild. And
on it.
everybody is like, but we don't have enough materials and we can't figure it out. But you can build another house. It's okay.
And it'll look better because we'll use everybody will be included in this one. That house was only built by a handful of people, and it was built under duress. Like, it wasn't built under like love or it wasn't built with like a community mindset. Like, we're gonna bring everybody in. It was built like don't whip me, massa. Like, and then people the shit is all shaking and stuff like that. They was cutting corners because they just didn't want to get beat, But it's like, now let's build it from the ground up with like everybody in mind, and we're gonna bring everybody in. But like I said, men fear that, right? Men fear. We don't want to know what our lives look like without masculinity, without manhood, without patriarchy, without misogyny. Like, we just don't want to know what it looks like. We're deathly afraid of that because our whole identities have been wrapped up in that for a millennia. Our whole identity has been wrapped up in oppressing women, oppressing children, having this inherent advantage in life, right? Like, we start off 50 yards in a 100-meter dash. We start off with the 50-yard handicap. That is, to a lot of men, that's spooky. That's scary.
But you know what though? Men do know. They do know. And I think the best example absolutely always is prison. Men know. They are aware. They know what it's like. They know what it's like to live in a system where you feel like your hands are tied. And even if you go as far as to say something, that saying something and going through the proper channels doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get the help or the service that you need. Maybe by fluke, but maybe you'll make it worse. Maybe you won't have access to, healthcare. Maybe, other people will join in on, mistreating you if you're in that, if you decide to go against that system. And they know that in the confines of they're affected by it, and they don't want other men they want to blend in because they are scared that other men will sort of turn to them. Like they are scared of drawing attention because when the men grab the pitchforks and the torches and they start chasing all the women, they like, but they not. Some men aren't even doing it. Some men are in the back with no pitchfork, no torch, nothing, no hand in the game, but they still standing there. They don't want to speak up because they are terrified that the whole group will turn around and go, "What?" and start chasing them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I was saying that they don't know what it's like for nobody to be chasing you and no pitchforks to be around, and you just it doesn't exist. The system doesn't exist anymore. And then it's like, now what? Now who am I? Right? Like, especially older men, we haven't unpacked any of our traumas. We're not human. We're not in touch with humanity at all. So it's kind of like being like like an empty nester, I would think, right? It's like, what is it going to be like once your kids move out? How are
Yeah.
you? How are you? Now your kids aren't there, right? To give you that buffer or to be the reason why you don't talk to your wife as much.
Right.
The reason why you don't take her out as much. The reason why she's just tired because of the kids. The kids been wearing her down. You know what I mean? Like now, when the kids are gone, who do you blame? When she's still sad, when she's still disgruntled, when she's still unsatisfied. Now you got to see, oh no, it really was me the whole time. And
You
I
know
need
what's funny about that though? When you talk about relationships, and we've heard this stat a lot about divorces, that 50% of marriages end in divorce. Divorce,
yeah.
divorce, divorce. The women are filing for divorce.
Mm.
The part that people always leave out is that the majority of those divorces are people who are in their 40s, 50s, recent empty nesters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's who those
What did
divorces
what did
are.
they
And
call
I
them?
think that's on purpose.
But what did they call them?
I can't
That was
remember what I read this, and when I read it,
like
I
gray
was like,
divorces. Gray divorces, I think, something like that.
yeah, but
Hmm.
that's the majority. Like, and it's a game because it's supposed to. There's this level of like, I can't remember what it was called. I read it in this book Cast, but it talked about, I mean, Weathering. It talked about how there's a redistribution of blame on age
Yes.
that is sort of feathered to teenage girls and young women, but the reality is it's not them. It's actually much older people who are sort of adding to these numbers, and that's what's
Hmm.
happening with the divorce rate. Is like you have a lot of 30 somethings and a lot of 20 somethings being blamed for divorce rates that are happening between like Gen
50.
Xers and boomers,
Hmm.
because a lot of them was in relationships where the only reason they was having conversations was because of them kids. They weren't
Yep.
talking about making a relationship last. They weren't talking about date nights. They wasn't talking about how, to please each other or how to be better companions to each other.
Yep.
They was talking about report cards and bills and all. And now the kids are gone. You don't have a conversation about report cards anymore. You don't have a conversation about parent teacher conference or somebody needs shoes or whatever. So now y'all just strangers passing in the night, and the lady is sick of it because she didn't spend her whole life taking care of you and these
Yep.
kids. And now that she doesn't have to have conversation with you, she not only doesn't want to have conversation with you, she don't want to live with you either.
Yep.
Cause you suck.
And,
It's
and she used to take care of the kids and would take care of you too, like just like subsequently, right? Like in just a part of it. But now it's just you, and she's like, I'm not cleaning up that dish. I'm not cleaning up after you. You know
you
what I'm saying?
crazy.
Like, I'm not. You do that. Like, what the fuck? I'm
I
retired
cleaned
too.
up after my kids because they was my kids.
Why wouldn't I retire? Like, well, she would clean up after. Like, if there's three, if you fed the family, what's one more plate? What's one more cup? You know what I'm saying? Like, so you would just wash everybody's plate and everybody's cup and everybody's fork and knife or whatever, right? But now it's just you and her, and she's like, why would I clean up after you? Like, what are you talking about? I'm not doing that. And,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you was in there. I literally had a man talk about that. like he was like really mad that his wife like left his dish in the sink. He left a dish on the tape I think he either left it on the sink or on the cabinet, and she took it and put it in the sink and left it there. And it was there overnight. He woke up and then he left it there, like thinking she would clean it. Or I think he ended up like he was trying to make a point, like, I'm not cleaning it, you cleaning. And then finally he asked her, and she was like, why would I clean up after? Like, I'm not cleaning up after you. Like, the kids are gone.
Right.
There's no reason for me to clean up after you. And he like didn't understand that. He was like,
That's so
what? Why would I?
irritating.
And I was like, yeah, you're tripping. You're terrible.
That's so
Like,
irritating. And imagine trying to live with somebody like that for like 20, 30 years. And the crazy part is, ain't no telling how much extra work she was doing that whole time. Like when you have kids, of course, there are always dishes, there's always shoes, there's always things all over the place.
mm-hmm.
And I think the worst thing in the world is probably to find out that the mess that you thought was all kids is partly your
It's
partner
his.
genuinely not caring. Like this nigga,
well, I think
really?
women always know that. I think women always, you know what I mean? Like, I
I
think
think
they
it's
always
worse when it's
clock like,
confirmed, though. I
but
think you
yeah,
live in
okay.
sort of a state of denial where you like, these kids, they always leaving dishes everywhere. They always doing, and it's
Or,
like,
or,
part of
or,
you was
or,
like, is this
or the
nigga
dad's
leaving these
blaming the
dishes out for
kids.
me too?
Or the dad's actually, right? The dad's act like when oh, damn kids, darn, you didn't clean up after you, you know what I mean? Doing that. Or I
Yeah.
don't know who did that, or leaving messes and then knowing that you would think it was the kids and not ever take like, oh yeah, I'm sorry for the kitchen earlier. Never, so it's a lot of that going on for sure. But I do real quick. I just want to go back to this real quick because I want to,
Yep.
I want to mention something about what this dude was saying too. So also before we forget, the Black Panther Party was even though a lot of women were in it, and at one
Mm-hmm.
point in time, I think it was like 80 or 90% female.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was still a very misogynistic, like the inner workings of it,
Talk
what
about it.
was very misogynistic. So when he's asking, well, why can't white men be like black men in this case? Why can't black men be like black men? The black men that you think that you that you're giving all this credit to, you know what
Niggas
I'm saying?
not like
I would
themselves
love
either.
we're not like ourselves. So let's talk about that too, because I think that that is very I don't like revisionist history, right? And
Yeah.
I this is no shade to this creator, to be honest with you. I really just feel like he said this out of ignorance. I don't feel like he meant any malice by it. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't think he was on the like.
I think he was genuine. I
I
think he
think he
was
was
absolutely
really
serious.
genuinely
I think
like.
he was absolutely serious.
I think it's 100% serious, and I think that the parts that he highlighted actually were obviously good things. You know what I'm saying? But as a black person and a black man, I feel like it is very important for me to make sure that we tell the truth about this
Right.
always. Like I always want to talk about this when it comes up. I never want to pedestalize this stuff or these movements or whatever. Let's because I don't want history to repeat itself. So I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I'm all for another BPP happening again, but it can't be that BPP. It has to be better. And
Yeah.
the only way for us to, you know what I'm saying? The only way for us to make it better is to understand what went on. So we got to talk about the abuses that women suffered, that children suffered, right? We have to talk about that. There's no way to get around that. And we have to the reason why he thinks that this was a movement for black men is the whole thing, like because they excluded what the black women were doing. Like, so that's
And
like
it's an intentional erasure of like an entire a large group of what made the party possible. Like it's an intentional erasure. Like when you even when you talk about like patient bill of rights, like people completely are ill informed about the fact that Tupac's mother was a
mm-hmm,
catalyst in that. Like and
mm-hmm,
that's so like it's not I don't want to say it's mind blowing, but it's very on brand for her for sure. You know what
yes,
I mean? But I think that it's also very telling of like how much women are left out of the conversation, particularly when it comes to civil rights movement. Like it's okay. People are perfectly fine with talking about a Coretta because Coretta was behind Martin.
she was
Like,
next
but
to
once you
Martin.
start,
Mm-hmm.
once you start talking about like, oh, she
Yeah.
was writing some of his speeches, then niggas be like, no, hold on
No,
now. Hold on. Like,
only
this
your
is a
man could
college
have thought
educated
it.
woman.
I have a dream. Like,
Like you never in your mind process that maybe his wife was in the dream somewhere. Like you never thought about that. And like there were other key contributors to a lot of his speeches. Like it wasn't just him talking and I think that that to me that's that very like pseudo intellectualism that people talk about all the time where you have dudes who really genuinely feel entitled to sharing their opinion because they only remember Martin and Malcolm and James,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Eldridge Cleaver, all these people as one single entity coming up with a bunch of ideas. They really
mm-hmm.
think these niggas was like sitting in the room by candlelight, like, I believe
We
the
gotta break
black
this out.
men and the black woman should be strong. Like, no, it was a whole bunch of other people in them rooms. And more
Mm-hmm.
than likely, it was a whole bunch of women in those rooms
100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
amplifying those voices. And you have to be able to accept that.
But they don't want to accept that. But here's why I love talking about it in this way or from this aspect is because that is what white men do to black people. That is what white men do to white women. That is
Hmm.
what Asian men do to Asian, you know what I mean? Like, and that's
Yeah.
why we are in this place where you can get online and you can pluck a man out of a crowd and ask them, who built the world? Oh, men built the world. Who was the greatest philosopher of all time? Plato. Who was like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's all, and every single time it's a man. It's a man. It's a man. And I'm like, that's convenient considering half of our population were women. You would think, how does everything go both ways but the contributions that were made throughout history? Everything else goes
Men
both
with deeply
ways.
seated past.
You said they what?
Men with deeply seated past. You can talk about
Yes.
Aristotle
Aristotle.
and
Yeah.
skip some parts. You can talk
Mm-hmm.
about Plato and skip
Yep.
some parts. You can talk about Freud and skip. And these are all men who were like blatantly misogynistic, like
Oh,
not
extremely
even a
misogynist,
like
especially
they
Freud.
were
Freud was crazy.
very misogynist. Darwin, like when you talk about Darwin's ideas
Einstein.
and it's like survival of the fittest type stuff, like it's rooted in misogyny. Like
And racism.
that's and very much like very much
With
and I
Darwin, that
think
just the racism came up.
you know what I
That
mean?
motherfucker
Like,
was racist.
and not to add, like, this isn't. We think of these things as like ancient sculptures, not realizing like that Darwin and Freud's ideas are very much modern history. Like,
Oh, it's right now.
this
Yeah,
is
that
modern
shit is
history.
happening today. Yeah, we say
But I'm
Freudian
saying,
slip
but
every day.
even Freud and Darwin, I want to maybe it was one or the other, or maybe it was both. Don't quote me on that part. But for sure, like you're talking about in the same era of like Albert Einstein, like they're existing in the
Darwin was
same time plane.
Darwin was before. He
I
was
think it
before.
was Freud then that I'm thinking
Freud
about.
was
I
around the
have a
same as
book in the
Albert
back of my
Einstein.
head that
Yeah.
talks about because actually there was this guy and I can't think of his name, but there was this guy who was very very staunch about Freud's ideas, but also he was one of the first supporters of Adolf. Like he was
Uh-huh.
very much like ooh, his name was Lee something, but he was very like gung ho about like all of these ideas of like erasing entire cultures because there's this like
This
Aryan
nigga
race that's
spitting.
gonna build like and all of those things are connected. And I think that when I listened to somebody in a live earlier talk about, pre-colonial Africa didn't have patriarchy and we lived in harmony and it wasn't until the white and I'm like, um I mean, I'm walking with you. Like, yeah, it wasn't. How do I put this? It wasn't as bad, but baby, you have to know it existed. And I think that
Yeah,
that's what people do with the Black Panther Party and the Civil Rights Movement is that they see hands holding and like they see, people singing "We Shall Not Be Moved." You know what I
yeah.
mean? And they skirts and at
They just see the
countertops
good parts. Mm-hmm.
but they just see the good parts. And like the
Mm-hmm.
part I'm always thinking about is like, I know that it wasn't completely inclusive because why didn't nobody never tell these women, like, maybe it's too hot to have on a wool skirt and maybe you're tired in heels walking for
Mm-hmm.
16 miles, like
Mm-hmm. The women were still out there in them heels, walking to
marching
work,
and getting bit.
getting bit, running, getting hosed down. The police was chasing them. I'm like falling and shit. I'm like, damn,
In a like and kitten
put
heels
some
are much
kids
harder to
on.
walk in.
Yeah,
Like trying to balance yourself in a little, in a little kitten heel while you trying to fight for freedom is crazy work. And none of the men ever looked and was like, hey, queen, you should rest your feet. Like
nah, they was
nobody ever
bad
said
though.
that.
I ain't gonna lie, them civil rights women was fine and shit. I seen them pictures. I was like, God damn, look what they got on. I just like the way they dress, but that's just me. I just like the way they looked in the 60s, man. They just look different in the 60s. The outfits was the best dress era of all time, besides the 90s, is the 60s. I don't care what nobody say. The suits was the cleanest, the dresses were the cleanest, the shoes, the haircuts was the best. Oh, it was vicious. The 60s was crazy. I love it. The ties was the best. Oh my God, I love the 60s.
I don't know how to feel about you lusting after civil rights leaders.
Some of them was
I
fine.
don't think that there's a cure for that. I don't know.
Some of them was fine though. I'm just saying, I just seen some black and white pictures where I was like, God damn, she was there. See, I wouldn't have let her get bit. I'd have had to tackle that goddamn German Shepherd. That's all I'm saying.
Wow.
If they spray the water, all I'm saying, if they try to spray the water, I'd have turned my back and put my back to her, to put my back to the water.
I
But
don't know
get
about
away from
that.
me.
My uncle was a fire marshal.
That water
He used
be
to take us
knocking your
to
skin off.
man, look, them firemen water hoses.
Them shit knock
My
your skin
God,
off.
it's like a pressure washer, like times 20.
That shit crazy. Yeah, I don't like that shit.
It's crazy. I don't know about that. It ain't enough
I would have
frying in
did
the
it though for
world.
the right BOA. I'd have did it. I ain't gonna even lie. I'd have been out there. Get away! Save yourself.
You and what's Megan Good man name?
Nah, that nigga would have ran. He a hoe. You talking about Jonathan Majors? That nigga,
Yeah, but I mean,
he dressed like
from
he
the
from the
past.
civil. He from there. He a blast from the past, but nah, that nigga, he would. We not the same. He not like us. I'd have been out there. Oh my God, they done got me. All
He
right,
would have
I
ran
got you.
across to try to get to a white woman. That's what he would have
He
did.
would. He
Truth
did.
be told, truth be
I'm just
told, he'd
saying.
knock one of them black women out the way. Like,
That's what I get. That's the vibe I get from Jonathan personally. I don't like
hey,
what he's saying. He'd have been like, I'm out here trying to find my Coretta. He'd have been out there on that type of shit. Like,
and like,
I,
but see, that ties into what you're saying too. It's like there's very much revisionist history around like I'm trying to find my Coretta. Who wants to go through, like, if you're a man and a human being and you know what it is Coretta went through, like, you can speculate all you want, but
Crazy.
you know what the real deal was.
Yep.
Like, you want to find a Coretta? That lady was at home by herself with them kids all the time, and the
On
few
on
times that she was with him, you marching up and down the street with little kids.
on,
And Matt,
on
you got
on
kids.
alert. On alert. High
You
alert. I'm
got
talking about
kids.
constant alert all day. Yeah,
Hold
all right,
up.
baby.
You got
Yep.
kids. You get up at 4 o'clock in the freaking morning for a bus
Mm.
boycott.
Nah.
This is the age before fruit snacks was invented. Wasn't no Capri Suns. Wasn't
Mm-mm.
no little plastic water bottles. You got 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-month-old, 2-year-old kids next to you, and everybody else is singing "We Shall Not Be Moved," and they talking about, "Mama, I'm hungry.
They don't
Is
know about.
Daddy's speech over? I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired. It's hot. I don't like these dress clothes." Like, that lady was going through it, and then on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, people like to speculate about whether or not the man was sleeping around or not. Whatever.
I don't even think.
Hypothetically,
Hypothetically, I don't
allegedly,
even. Yeah. I don't
I
believe.
say allegedly.
I don't believe nothing the FBI say about black people. But that y'all
I don't
could
believe
y'all.
nothing the FBI said about black people. I do believe in black old people, black gossip.
Yeah, I believe in old black gossip. If I hear it from an old black person, I believe it. But I
That's
never.
where I got that from.
I will never believe it from the FBI. But if you heard it
Old
from an
black
old black
gossip.
person, I believe it.
Old
I
black
believe it.
gossip says that
Yep.
he may or may not have it. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think that we'll never really get the truth of that. But nevertheless, like, even if you consider, and I think that, you know what, to me, I don't think that that's necessarily a stain on him as much as it humanizes him. Truthfully, I think that it humanizes him. I think that it allows for, because if you live in a space where you know at the time men, it was okay for men to cheat on their wives as long as they was taking care of bills, as long as they was doing this, as long as they, like, you have to know that he was sort of socialized to believe that that was okay. I think that the way that people think of, again, Black Panthers, the way that people think of MLK, the way that people think of Malcolm X, the way that people think of Tupac,
Mm.
you have to be able to see the whole person, because the whole person is what's giving you the gift.
Yeah.
That's what's giving you the moment. And like, the Black Panther Party without the misogyny doesn't really tell the full story. Once you get the full story, now you can take it, you can revise it and make it better. But if you never get the whole story, you gonna follow the blueprint word for word. And guess what? History repeats itself.
That's my fear. That's it. That's perfect. That's my fear. That's all I fear.